2024 Russian thriller Otrazny TMY hits hard. This is a film that combines mystery, danger, and the unknown, attracting those who enjoy twisted and immersive thrillers. The story begins with a woman exploring a spooky, eerie forest alone. She runs frantically through the forest, as though some terrifying creature is chasing her. Suddenly, she feels something unusual above her, as if something is lurking overhead. It turns out to be a dead raven, but just then, she hears sticky footsteps behind her. A dark, blurry figure is watching her. Terrified, the woman trembles all over. There, she notices a mirror in front of her and realizes that something's wrong with her reflection. Before she could react, black ropes suddenly shot out of the withered bushes and tied her hands tightly. The room key she had tightly clutched falls to the ground. At that moment, she finally sees the thing in the mirror. 3 months later, a mysterious person hosts a couples therapy event on a deserted island. 4 couples, all facing relationship problems, come seeking help. That night, the mysterious host arranges a truth-telling session, where the 8 of them must share everything without hiding anything. To ensure honesty, they are given lie detector machines. The first to introduce himself is Andy, an extreme sports enthusiast whose life is a never-ending thrill until he meets his girlfriend Olivia, and only then does he feel at home. But the lie detector alerts that Andy is lying. It turns out Andy cheated during their relationship.
It's hard for me to trust him again. So, we're here to restore the trust. Truth!
Michael is an IT worker, and his girlfriend Stacy is an archaeologist who specializes in ancient rituals and religions. They came here to restore their intimacy. However, the lie detector signals that Stacy is lying. Clearly, her reason for being here is not to repair their relationship. Next up are Kate and Nick, whose main issue is Kate's unfulfilled desires. Then there's Javier and Jin, who have a similar issue, though with one key difference: both of them are unfulfilled and secretly cheat on each other. After the introductions, the NPC hands each of them an envelope, urging them to answer the questions inside truthfully. The first to open her letter is Kate, who faces a sharp question. Kate doesn't want to answer it, declares she's done with the activity, and attempts to leave. But 2 NPCs stop her. Once the event begins, there's no backing out. Next, it was Stacy's turn to read the letter, but she quickly realized that the mysterious person didn't intend to repair their relationships. Instead, he aimed to intensify the conflicts between them. She refuses to answer the question inside the letter. Stacy unexpectedly finds herself in a dark, eerie maze, with the occasional sound of heavy breathing echoing in her ears. She suddenly notices something in the hole ahead and cautiously approaches to take a look. Thankfully, it's just a false alarm. In the hole, she discovers a flashlight and a letter. She opens the letter to read its contents. At that moment, she sees a shadow dart across in front of her. Stacy follows the direction of the shadow but finds no one there. But there was a faint sound of heavy breathing. She follows the sound and comes upon a mirror, where the noise seems to be coming from. She carefully inspects the mirror, but there's nothing out of the ordinary. When she turns to walk away, though, the reflection of Stacy in the mirror doesn't disappear. Instead, it eerily watched her leave. Even stranger, Andy suddenly appears behind her, walking toward her with an evil grin. When Stacy looks back, she sees herself in the mirror, intimately close to Andy. The Andy in front of her begins to slowly undress, as though tempting her. In a panic, Stacy punches the mirror, shattering it. With the mirror's destruction, the strange temptations vanish. The real Andy is now in the maze as well. He, too, receives a flashlight and a letter. The contents are identical to Stacy's. Find the others before you can leave together. Despite searching for a long time, Stacy can't find anyone. She only discovers an old pocket watch and a transparent lens. Curious, she holds the lens up to her eye. Through it, she sees a figure ahead. But when she looks again, there's no one there. Not willing to believe it, she raises the lens to her eye again. Terrified, Stacy runs to a corner, unable to shake the terrifying image she saw. She then notices a bracelet hanging from a branch, with the letters spelling out Stacy's name. Before she can process this, a strange beeping sound comes from nearby. She approaches and finds the sound is coming from a hole. She slowly crawls inside and discovers a room key for room 11. As she tries to escape, Stacy runs into her boyfriend Michael, At the same time, Nick appears, supporting the injured Kate. Clearly, they've all encountered something terrifying. They realize the island isn't normal and agree that they must find an exit and leave immediately. Just then, Olivia's voice calls from behind them. She tells them to follow her. She and Andy have already found the exit. When they return, however, Javier and Jin are nowhere to be found. The NPC informs them that Javier and Jin have already completed the tests and returned. Michael then confronts the NPC, demanding to know why there was sedative in their drinks, and accusing the tests of being too dangerous. The group collectively demands to leave. The NPC explains that the hallucinations were caused by the drugs and stresses that once the activity begins, there is no leaving in the middle. Even if they try to leave, no planes are available to take them off the island, so they must wait until the activity is over. In the end, they had no choice but to stay. That night, Stacy asks Michael if he encountered anything strange in the maze. Michael doesn't hide anything and admits he faced many seductive illusions in the maze, but he resisted them all and didn't fall for them. In fact, Michael knows a way off the island. He wants to invite Stacy to leave secretly with him, but she refuses. Curious, Michael asks why. Stacy then reveals the real reason she came to the island. Her twin sister, Melissa, went missing on the island. She shows Michael the bracelet she found in the maze, telling him it's her sister's. However, Michael thinks Stacy is just overreacting. He insists the bracelet clearly belongs to Stacy, and that what she really needs is some medication. He starts rummaging through the drawer for something. Seeing that Michael doesn't believe her and even thinks she's losing her mind, Stacy storms out in anger. Outside, Stacy notices the NPC entering a strange room. Her intuition tells her that room is anything but ordinary. Meanwhile, Kate, who has just returned from the maze, finds that the wound on the back of her neck has worsened. It turned out that while she was being intimate with Javier in the maze, she had accidentally been pierced by something sharp. Suddenly, she hears urgent knocking at the door. When Kate opens it, she appears to see something terrifying, her mouth hanging open in shock. Elsewhere, Stacy is woken up in the middle of the night by the sound of crying outside her door. Curious, she gets up to check and finds a woman with disheveled hair. Stacy is so frightened that she falls to the ground. Just then, a shadow runs past behind her. Stacy cautiously gets up and follows the figure. Around the corner, she spots the same strange woman again, crouching down and scribbling on a piece of paper with a pen. Stacy feels a sense of familiarity about the figure and gathers the courage to approach her slowly. She crouches beside the woman. To confirm her suspicions, she hesitantly calls out,
Stacy?
She picks up the paper the woman was drawing on and discovers that the drawing is of the very room the NPC entered. This makes Stacy even more certain that the room hides a secret about the island.
Dead!
Suddenly, Stacy is jolted awake. It was all just a nightmare. The next morning, the NPC announces two things. The first is that Kate and Javier have completed their tasks and left. The other announcement was about today's test. They would swap partners and spend the day together to test their self-control. However, Stacy's attention is fixed on the key at the NPC's waist, and she begins to formulate a plan. While the others were immersed in their dates, Stacy took Andy to the room marked 11 on the plaque and asked him to wait outside. Inside the room, she finds an ancient box with strange patterns engraved on it. Inside the box is a bottle of yellow liquid. Though its purpose is unclear, there's also a yellowed piece of paper, and on it is a drawing of the same room the NPC entered. Andy picks up the paper from the floor and asks about its origin. Stacy doesn't hide the truth. She admits that the drawing was made by her sister. 3 months ago, her sister came here, and then mysteriously disappeared. She came here to investigate her sister's disappearance and hopes that Andy will help her steal the key from the NPC.
She was a scientist too. Your boyfriend said you're an ethnographer. Does that run in the family?
Michael is not my boyfriend. And I'm not Stacy.
It turns out that Stacy's real identity is actually Melissa, her twin sister. The reason for their identity swap was a series of unfortunate events. A while ago, Melissa, having just finished drinking, impulsively decided to wear her sister Stacy's clothes. At that exact moment, Michael returned home and mistook Melissa for Stacy. Under the influence of alcohol, Michael and Melissa had sexual relations. Unfortunately, this was witnessed by the real Stacy when she came back. Afterward, Stacy gave Michael to her sister, but Michael was completely unaware of this. Stacy then came to the island for an archaeological expedition, but mysteriously disappeared. Once Andy understood that the island held dark secrets, he agreed to help Melissa. While dancing, Andy managed to steal the NPC's keys and handed them over to Melissa. While everyone is busy with the party, Melissa makes her way to the mysterious room. Inside, she discovers a dimly lit basement with an altar surrounded by candles. It was here that she found a woman tied up. Melissa is about to approach her to investigate but suddenly hears footsteps. Four robed and masked figures descend into the basement, forcing Melissa to hide. They take the woman and bring her into the very same maze Melissa had been to earlier. She secretly follows them. When they reach their destination, the masked figures remove the woman's head covering, and to Melissa's shock, it was Kate. It turned out that Kate hadn't left the island. Instead, she had been captured and locked up by them. They placed Kate against a wooden stake, then raised their hands and began chanting a spell. Soon, a dark mass slowly emerged, resembling a cocoon filled with evil energy. Both Melissa and Kate are stunned as the creature inside the cocoon emerges. The woman who steps out is naked, and she looks exactly like Kate. Under Kate's terrified gaze, the woman slowly approached her and drained Kate's life force entirely, before finally leaving, satisfied. By the time Melissa got closer, she discovered that Kate was already lifeless. At that moment, Melissa noticed a notebook nearby. She opened it and realized it was her sister Stacy's journal. She pushed aside the branches in front of her and indeed saw the lifeless body of Stacy. Suddenly, Melissa heard strange noises nearby. Not having time to mourn, she grabbed the journal and quickly fled. Her only focus now was to avenge her sister. In the notebook, Melissa learns about the demon her sister had been investigating, known as a succubus in Europe. These demons can take on any form, feeding on the souls of those driven by jealousy, rage, and lust. They lure humans into releasing these primal desires, then begin harvesting their souls. Eventually, the soul-harvested individuals become slaves to the succubus. To stop the succubus, Stacy had found a method in ancient texts that could banish the demon from the human realm. She wrote a special incantation on a piece of paper, burned it to ash, then added a suitable amount of alcohol and mixed it with the ash. Then, she recited an incantation, and in the end, she obtained a potion that could force the succubus to reveal its true form. The true form of the succubus is most afraid of fire. At this point, all it takes is to set it alight to destroy it. Melissa deduces that the yellow liquid in the box must be the potion Stacy mentioned. As Melissa continues reading, an old photograph falls out from between the pages. To her shock, the photo is of Jin, the woman who had come to the island with them. It turns out that Jin is the true mastermind behind everything, and she is the succubus in disguise. But by the time Melissa made this discovery, it was already too late. Michael, unable to resist Jin's temptation, had been infected, and the wound on the back of his neck had already spread to the front. In a panic, Melissa rushed to take Michael to Olivia, revealing the full truth to them. They needed to leave immediately. However, as they try to leave, the succubus blocks their path. Javier, too, had become a slave to the succubus. Jin commanded Michael to serve her as her servant, for his soul now met the criteria to become a succubus slave. To everyone's horror, Michael did not resist. He walked toward Jin. Seeing this, Jin immediately begins performing a dark ritual, but before she can complete her incantation, Michael sneaks up behind her, plunging a dagger into her neck. The succubus collapsed, and her followers fell with her. But Michael, too far gone with the infection, was beyond saving. Devastated, Melissa suddenly saw her sister's reflection in a mirror. Remembering the contents of her sister's journal, Melissa realizes that the succubus won't die so easily. She was determined to fulfill her sister's unfinished mission, to completely destroy the succubus and avenge both Stacy and Michael. Olivia and Andy, also resolute, decided to stay and help. Stacy's journal contains a specific trap for the succubus. The demon is particularly vulnerable to the reflection in mirrors. If it sees its true form in a mirror, its power will be greatly weakened. However, to succeed, they would need 3 mirrors, along with the potion created by Stacy, to finally and completely destroy the succubus. They then split up to search for the mirrors. Soon, Olivia found a mirror in the maze. On the other side, Andy also found a mirror, but while moving it, he accidentally touched a hand. Curiously, he peered into the branches. Luckily, Olivia, holding a mirror, managed to force them back. Melissa was right, they were afraid of mirrors. With the mirrors in place, they quickly set up the trap. Now all they had to do was lure the succubus out. Melissa and Andy share a kiss, but nothing happens. The succubus doesn't appear. Olivia, realizing that she was affecting them, decided to leave on her own. After leaving, she hid in a corner, crying quietly. Meanwhile, Melissa and Andy fully gave in to their primal desires. It worked as expected. Soon, Olivia's screams echoed through the air. Andy knew the succubus had arrived and chose to go find Olivia, leaving Melissa to wait for the succubus's appearance. However, Andy returned shortly after. Upon seeing him, Melissa quickly opened the mirror. She then removed her clothes and entangled herself with Andy. At that moment, another Andy appeared and silently opened the last remaining mirror. Seeing the right moment, Melissa pushed Andy away and splashed the potion on him. Andy immediately screamed in agony. Finally, the succubus revealed its true, horrific form. However, its power was still overwhelming. It shattered the mirrors with a forceful burst. Suddenly, a cold, eerie aura filled the air. A group of terrifying zombies appeared from behind them. To their surprise, the zombies didn't attack them but instead walked straight towards the succubus. It turned out that not only humans could see the succubus's true form, but also the souls of those it had killed. The zombies were here for revenge. Melissa and Andy seized the opportunity and, while the succubus was trapped by the zombies, they threw the homemade Molotov cocktails they had prepared. The succubus was quickly consumed by flames. Just as Melissa thought it was over, a hand reached out to her. Upon seeing the figure, tears filled her eyes. It was her sister Stacy, here to say goodbye to Melissa. With the succubus dead, the enslaved souls also began to dissipate and escape and release for them all. After successfully eliminating the succubus, they prepared to leave via helicopter. But just as they were about to board, Melissa remembered her sister's diary had been left behind at the hotel. Andy immediately offered to go back and retrieve it for her. He also said something cryptic.
When we get back, I'd like to see you again.
Melissa felt confused by his words. The film ends here, so was the succubus really destroyed?